Welcome back, Irish fans, to Breaking Down Brace Boys podcast. Today, previewing Syracuse Notre Dame tomorrow. Should be a really good game. First game got canceled, unfortunately. Always look forward to Cuse Notre Dame. Last year, two great games. They split the series. This year, they probably won't have the chance to split the series unless they play in the ACC tournament, which is really possible no matter what happens, just because of how the ACC tournament could play this year because of the seeding, and they're both on the bubble. Syracuse is more so on the bubble than Notre Dame, but should be interesting. I brought on Mike McAllister to preview the game. He's a publisher of Syracuse on SI. Have to say, we filmed this a couple of days before Christmas, so a really long time ago. Some stuff has changed. I tried to edit out the time-specific parts, but there are some parts that I couldn't really edit out that are time-specific and it's changed. Just know back then Syracuse was 6-1. It was right after Sidibe got injured. He's not back. If he is, he's playing minimal minutes because I looked at all their box scores and he hasn't played. So should be interesting. But as of then, they didn't play a hard schedule. Joe Girard was kind of on the fringe of being the starter back then. Not sure exactly how that is now, but I'm pretty sure he's started most games. So going to be a really interesting game, and let's get into it now. Here's some insight on Syracuse, and then I'll come back later on and give the rest of the preview. So first, just wanted to ask you, can you give us a quick breakdown of each starter and kind of what they bring to the table?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. But we'll start in the backcourt. Their starting backcourt is Joe Girard and Buddy Boeheim. They're two of the veterans on the team, especially Buddy. Both of them were starters last year. Joe has gotten off to kind of a slow start this season. He was known last year for being, kind of a gritty player and a good offensive player, good outside shooter, struggled a little bit defensively. And his defensive struggles have continued at the beginning of this year, perhaps gotten a little more pronounced at times. And then offensively, he has really struggled, hasn't shot the ball very well from the outside, been very up and down. He's a guy who could come out and go 7 of 8 from 3 against Notre Dame, or he could go 0 for 9. I mean, it seems like this year there hasn't been in between where he's 3 for 7 or something, or 3 for 8. He's either making them all or missing them all. That's kind of been the way it's gone for him this year. With Buddy, he missed 3 games due to being under quarantine after being in close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID. And the first game back against Boston College, he had a really nice game and made 3 or 4 from the outside. And since then, his outside shot hasn't been falling. But he's a longer guard, about 6'6", 6'7". So at the top of the zone, he's got the long arms to cause deflections and things of that nature. In the last couple of games, he's been a little bit better passing the ball and helping out on the boards as well. So he's impacted the game in other areas. The guy who's probably been playing the best for them consistently is Quincy Guerrier, who's averaging 18 points and 10 rebounds a game. He played as a true freshman last year, but played a large portion of the year with an injury. And this year he's fully healthy, and he has really stepped up his game in terms of defensively attacking the glass. And then he's averaging those 18 points a game, but he's also shooting, over 65% from the field. And he's even shooting over 43% from the outside. He's not going to take, 4, 5, 6 threes a game, but he might take 1 or 2 if you leave him open, and he's been making them at a pretty decent clip. So he's been pretty good. He's their most physical interior player. Alan Griffin, transfer from Illinois, is the other starting forward. He's been up and down as well. He started the season really well. He's really good on the boards. And in the most recent game, he also had 3 blocks and a couple of steals. So he started to pick it up defensively as he's getting used to the zone. And he's also been kind of up and down as an outside shooter. In the second to most recent game, their win over Northeastern, he actually was held scoreless, didn't make a shot. And then the first, I'd say 25, 30 minutes of their most recent game against Buffalo, he kind of continued those struggles And then he had a conversation with Boeheim, and over the last 10 minutes against Buffalo, played tremendous basketball on both ends. So Syracuse fans are obviously hoping that he's got his slump behind him. And then starting in the middle is Marek Dolezaj, who's supposed to be one of their starting forwards, but with their starting center, Barama Sidibe, out with an ankle or a leg injury, Dolezaj has filled in for him in the middle, as they don't really use their reserve centers a ton, mainly because they're inexperienced and they don't have the trust of the coaching staff right now. So Dolezaj has filled in there. He's not a rim protector. He's a decent rebounder, but he is an excellent passer. They like to run the offense through him in the low post or even up at the top. He can do a lot of things. He can take guys off the dribble, hits the mid-range jumper, not a frequent outside shooter, but okay at it. And he's just a really crafty, solid, all-around offensive player. So everyone has a little bit of different skill set that they bring to the table, and that five has played pretty well together.
Gotcha. Jim Boeheim's kind of known for his 2-3 zone, and you brought up how a lot of the guys are maybe having a little bit of trouble adjusting to it, and it's taking time. Is there anything else Syracuse does that's kind of unique on either end?
Yeah, it's called a zone, but it's almost man-to-man in certain areas defensively. They trap a lot out of it. It's a very aggressive zone. A lot of people hear zone and think it's passive. They sort of sit back and just try to get you to launch a lot of threes. And while teams do shoot a lot of threes against the zone, it's when it's working, it's very aggressive. They trap, they force turnovers. It's very active. The fact that they have so much length, usually all over the floor. When Syracuse brings in Kadari Richmond off the bench and brings him in for Joe Girard, you've got him and Buddy Boeheim, or him and Alan Griffin at the top of your zone. You've got a couple of guys that are 6'6", 6'7", and that makes it much more difficult for guards to penetrate and to find open players and to move the ball around, because you've got those long arms in your face whenever you're trying to dribble the ball around or pass it around the perimeter. So the zone is unique in that way. It's all they do. And there's not a lot of teams across college basketball that use zone as their primary defense, let alone as their only defense. Syracuse does not change over to man-to-man. They will press from time to time, but when the press is beaten, they settle back into a zone. So that's very unique. Offensively, I do think it's unique that a lot of what they do is not run through the point guard. A lot of it is run through Dolezaj, their forward, because he's such a good passer and he has such good vision, and they're comfortable with him handling the ball. So they do a lot of things with him catching the ball kind of at the free throw line, or even a step back, or even at the elbow a little bit, and then running some motion around that so he can find cutters, or he can get a screen set for him to take a guy off the dribble. They do a lot of isolation offensively as well, where they'll give the ball to Buddy Boeheim and have him try to back someone down, or Kadari Richmond to take his guy off the dribble, and even Alan Griffin as well. So offensively, there's not a lot of uniqueness. They do a lot of different things, but defensively, the zone is definitely unique. They will trap you. They will use their length to their advantage. The biggest thing that they're missing from their zone is the bulk and rim protection in the middle, which is a product of not having their starting center, because he's currently out. Syracuse is hopeful that he'll be back either at the end of this month or early January.
Gotcha. You brought up Kadari Richmond a little bit. It kind of sounds like he's a really pesky guy you don't want to see. Do they mostly just sub him in and give him extended minutes when Girard doesn't have it?
He's going to play regardless, but if Girard is not playing well, Girard is not nearly the defender that Kadari Richmond is. And if Girard is not giving you anything offensively, if he's not shooting the ball well, if he's in one of those 0 for 9 type of a modes that I mentioned earlier, then it hurts you on both ends to keep him out there. If you bring in Kadari Richmond, even if he's not the same type of shooter, and even if he's not, scoring the ball at a high clip, he's a better passer. He's better at finding his teammates and setting them up for good looks. But then defensively, he's so much better than Joe Girard is. He's longer, he's more active, he's averaging, 3 to 4 steals a game, despite the fact that he's had limited minutes. And what we've seen from Boeheim in the last couple of games is that if Girard is not playing well, that he's willing to go with Kadari Richmond for extended minutes. And in the most recent game against Buffalo, Richmond had 32 minutes, Girard had just 16. And that was because Girard was ineffective offensively. Kadari came in, gave him a little spark there, was really good on the defensive end. And when Syracuse made their run, it was with Richmond in there, and he was a big part of that. So a lot of it's going to be kind of riding the hot hand and seeing who happens to be playing better that game. But they're both going to play. They're both going to be in the double-digit minutes in most games, and it's going to be dependent on how they happen to be playing on that given day.
Gotcha. Seems like a good strategy and one that a lot of teams would love to have with a guard like Girard. What do you think? What do you think their biggest strengths and weaknesses is as a team? You brought up kind of the big men down low. Do you think that would be kind of a weakness for them?
Yeah, they don't have the size and the muscle and rim protection inside. They've been hurt on the boards. Buffalo was destroying Syracuse inside. They had a forward who, was about 230, 240 pounds and was just pushing guys around inside. He scored 27 points against Syracuse. Syracuse gave up the season high in points in the paint against Buffalo because of that. Almost all of his 27 points came inside there. And Merrick Dolezaj is, 6'10", 6'11". He's long. He's just, he's barely 210 pounds soaking wet. And so if you've got a guy that's 230, 240, 250, he's going to push Dolezaj around just because he's just not strong enough to handle that. And that's where missing Parama Sidibe has really hurt Syracuse in terms of that. But the weakness in terms of rebounding, weakness in terms of interior defense for sure. And then, they have a tendency sometimes to fall in love with a three-point shot, even if it's not falling offensively. That can be to their detriment. But when things are clicking, they're moving the ball well. They've got 3 or 4 guys that are very willing passers. The advantage to having Dolezaj in there in the middle is offensively, you do have more willing passers and more scorers because Barama is really not someone that you're going to throw the ball into and let him go to work in the low post. He's just kind of there, can catch lobs and things like that, but you're not going to run anything for him. And Syracuse does run a lot for Dolezaj, so it gives you more offensive weapons, and that's definitely the strength of the team is offensively. Against Buffalo, they scored 107 points, and they only made 3 3-pointers, which tells you they can morph into doing different things depending on what's working and what's not. And the 3-point shot was not working against Buffalo, so they attacked the basket, passed the ball well, got people some good looks inside. And that's what they do well is score the basketball. And then defensively, even though they don't have the rim protection, they're not great in a lot of ways defensively. The one area where they've been really good at forcing turnovers. And so if they can keep up that clip, they've taken care of the basketball themselves better in the last few games. It gives them a chance to beat almost any team out there.
Gotcha. You talked about the guy on Buffalo who had 27. Don't think they're going to have that issue against Notre Dame with Juwan Durham tweaking his ankle, and Notre Dame pretty much has gotten dominated down low in almost every game this year. So don't think you're going to have to worry about that. And Notre Dame fans should definitely listen to that part about turnovers because that's been an issue also. But what do you think Cuse has to do to beat Notre Dame on Tuesday night?
I think if they, as you mentioned, that Notre Dame's had a weakness inside, as has Syracuse. So it's kind of weakness against weakness. So whoever can get the edge there, I think that gives that team a big advantage. So if Syracuse can control the boards a little bit against a team that doesn't have the same level of interior players that they faced in the last few games, I think that gives them a big boost. And then, I think it seems kind of boring, but forcing turnovers and taking care of the basketball. You win a lot of games if you do those things. Syracuse, I think, would do well to sort of break out of their outside shooting slump. I think they're 5 for 37 in the last 2 games from 3, which is about 13.5%, not very good. And this is a team that should be shooting around 35+% as a team. They have enough good shooters that they should be able to do that. And so if they're going to break out of that in a game like this, I think that gives them a huge edge. But it's, defensively, I think you got to control Prentice Hub. He's a really good player. He has the ability to take over games and get the team into an offensive rhythm. And Syracuse has to play well defensively, and it starts with controlling him, not letting him get penetration, limit his outside shots or his open looks from the outside. So those are the areas I think they're going to focus on. Try to control the boards, not let Notre Dame get easy looks, control Prentice Hub, and move the ball offensively, and hopefully you'll shoot better from the outside.
Gotcha. You sounded just like Mike Bray when you were talking about controlling the turnover battle, taking care of the ball. Notre Dame fans, yeah, we've heard that time and time again. And I wanted to bring up, now that we're on the subject of big men. I think this is going to be a game where we're really going to miss John Mooney. Just he's torn up Syracuse in the past, so I just wanted to touch on that. Not the game we don't want to see John Mooney. I think Notre Dame fans are going to have a whole nother level of appreciation if we struggle this time. But before I let you go, I don't know if you're a big prediction guy. It can get you in trouble sometimes, but do you have a prediction for this one?
Why not? I'm happy to be wrong. It happens. But I think this is a game that because it's at Syracuse, regardless of the fact that there's no fans, there's still a comfort level playing at home. But I think Syracuse, having won the last two games without playing well, at some point they're going to break out of that and play better and shoot the ball better from the outside. The fact that they're going against a team that doesn't have the thing that causes them the most trouble, which is big physical interior presence, I think that's an advantage for Syracuse. So I think this is a game that has a potential to be a high scoring game in the 70s or 80s, but I think Syracuse pulls this one out and wins somewhere in the 6 to 8 point range.
Gotcha. I think that's very possible. I'll give my prediction later with my other co-hosts when we get on, but this is going to be a tough one for both teams. Like you said, I think high scoring. So if that's all you have to touch on for Syracuse, if there's anything else big you missed, you can let me know. But other than that, we're good to go.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I think it'll be a fun game. Notre Dame's usually a well-coached team. It's always fun to watch them play. And so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, now that we got some good insight about Syracuse, I guess I'll go into the keys. This is going to be a really simple game. Syracuse, as we talked about earlier, plays that 2-3 zone. They're never going to come out of it, really. So obviously, number one key is going to be beat the zone. They're probably not going to come out of it if Notre Dame beats it. Last year, Notre Dame put on a show offensively, one of their best games of the year in both games offensively. Just got to defend. But if they attack it the way they did in the past and they can shoot the way they did last year, they'll be in really good shape. I think they could kind of attack the zone with Dane in the middle, go high-low with him and Durham, or high-low with Nate and Durham too. They used to go behind the zone a lot last year too, and then Hub had a lot of good looks from deep. I don't expect Hub to hit a bunch of crazy shots like he did right there, but it should be a really fun game, fast-paced. Notre Dame got out in transition a lot, but going off of the offense, I guess I'll shift to defense. The second key is cut off driving lanes. I think Notre Dame could really could drop into a lot of zone because of this. Cuse is a team that takes a lot of mid-range shots. They don't shoot nearly as many threes as I thought they did, not as many as Notre Dame for sure. Guerrier and Boeheim really like to go downhill. They don't really have a true low post guy, so cutting off driving lanes is really going to mess with them. Girard's inconsistent, so I think if you make them shoot threes and cut off driving lanes, then you're in really good shape. And then three, I kind of touched on this with the pace of the game, but no scoring droughts. Last year, it was just blow for blow, and it seemed like the first team who didn't score was going to lose the game. So that could be tomorrow. Should be really fun. But they were going blow for blow every possession. If Notre Dame even gets on the small scoring drought in the second half, I think that's the game. So that's the keys. Notre Dame has to do a lot to win this game, but I think they're really capable of it if they play the way they did offensively against Wake Forest or Pitt or Duke or a lot of these games recently, Boston College. Miami was just a tough one, but that's to be expected on a Sunday at 6 p.m. So that's what I have for the keys. What to watch for. I can't go into this without mentioning Joe Girard versus Prentice Hub. One of the best one-on-one matchups we've seen in a long time with Notre Dame. Just going blow for blow. Hub got the technical, and then Girard hit like 3 threes in his face. Hub hit 2 in his face, and Notre Dame won this game. A lot of, I wouldn't say bad blood, but it seems like a mini rivalry between them. John Mooney saying, "This is my house," in the Carrier Dome. Also probably didn't go over super well, so it should definitely be fun, and that should be a really fun matchup to watch. That's my matchup to watch also outside of this. 2, how does Notre Dame attack the zone? Last year they put Dane and Mooney in a ton in the middle. I think Cormac could go in the middle of the zone. Dane, maybe Nate, and then him and Durham could go high-low. But Dane's really good at getting his shot off quickly. I don't think he'll get trapped in there. Even Hub went in there a few times. I don't know if he was super successful, but he had a really good game against them last year. I think how they attack the zone is going to determine if they win this game. And Bray's been attacking that little 2-3 Boeheim runs for years, so not too concerned about that, but it should be interesting to see how he does it with new personnel. Now that he doesn't have John Mooney, who was the Syracuse and zone killer. So that's something to watch for sure. 3, Cormac Ryan's health. Bray said he probably wouldn't have been ready to go if they played Clemson on Wednesday. But he said he's going to be good to go tomorrow. So hopefully he's good enough to go. I think he's a guy who makes a huge difference in this game with his defense. He's one of the guys who can cut off driving lanes, him and Jogo, and Sanders, I guess, but Sanders isn't really going to get minutes. So Cormac's health is a huge thing, and if he's hobbling around or even if he's a late scratch, they're in really bad shape in some areas. So that's something to watch for, and then kind of stemming off that, Notre Dame guard play is also something to watch for. Hub had a really brutal night on Sunday. 1 for 8 from the field, I'm pretty sure, or 1 for 8 from 3, something like that, with 4 points. So really need more from him if they're going to win this game. Going to need a game similar to that game at the Carrier Dome last year, and I think he can do it for sure. They're not going to pressure him a whole lot, so he's gonna have an easier time bringing the ball up. Just got to make sure he gets good looks, and if he's on tomorrow, then Notre Dame's in a really good spot. So that's what I have for what to watch for. Leading score prediction. It was actually hard to do this because Syracuse doesn't really have guys down low who I think can stop Nate and Juwan, but also Notre Dame's guards tend to thrive against zones. So I'm going to go with Dane Goodwin, actually, just because he sat in the middle of the zone so much last year. He can get his shot off quick with those little free throw line turnaround jumpers. I think the zone really fits him and his style of play, the way he shoots. So that's what I have for leading score. Obviously, matchup to watch is Girard versus Hub. Could also see Hub or Ryan easily be the leading scorer. The only guy who I think could have a little trouble is Wirtz, just because they're so athletic, like with Griffin and Boeheim and all those guys coming out extending, athletic and long. I think it's going to be a bit tough for him, but like Dane, his skill set kind of fits against the zone, so I could see him playing well too. So should be a really fun game. My prediction, I'm going to go with Notre Dame by 1-3. Hopefully they can win this one, get to 500 on the year. If they can make a run here, anything can happen. So this game should be really fun regardless of if Notre Dame wins or loses. Maybe not as fun if they lose, but both games last year were great. So hopefully that intensity from last year carries over even with no fans. So thank you guys for watching. Go Irish. We'll be back with a Louisville preview if that game happens. I think it should. So thank you guys for watching. Go Irish. Peace.